This league, from my perspective, is one that is very vibes oriented. A lot of people just trying to spread good vibes, be as positive as possible. Yeah, there's some minor dust ups here and there, but generally speaking, people in this league tend to gravitate towards the positive, so long as we're not talking about the Kansas City Chiefs or politics. Hello and welcome to the OMFL Atlanta Falcons review. Uh, I personally am very facts oriented. I believe that if you're going to say something, it should be as close to the truth as possible. Obviously, there are some things that you can't possibly look up. There are some things you can't possibly be expected um, to track. But generally speaking, I think it is important to be as accurate as possible when discussing certain things. With that in mind, I also believe it is important to point out when somebody is right about something they've said when I wasn't entirely sure that they were. Allow me to explain. Press Pass Live this week, Nate was leading off, I believe, talking about the switch to All Madden. And the first thing he said was just look at the scoreboard. And instinctively, I said out loud to an empty room. I was at work while listening to the show or watching the show. I said, "Come on. There were close games under All Pro." But I decided I wanted to look it up. I wanted to give the benefit of the doubt and look it up. What I found was, through 6 weeks last season under All Pro, there were 58 close games. I deem close games within 10 points. Because while it is 2 scores, getting a touchdown, if you get an onside kick, you're practically in field goal range to begin with. You need 1, maybe 2 short plays, or medium length plays anyways, and you're in field goal range. I feel like that is doable. So games that end within 10 points, I feel like are close games. Now, obviously, there are games that become 10-point games at the end, but just the same, there are games that are 7-point games all the way through and end at 14. So I feel like it balances out. There were 58 close games under All Pro through 6 weeks. Through 6 weeks in All Men, there were 52. Now you're saying, well, clearly All Pro had more. But 6 games being different between the two is so incredibly close that it is definitely within any margin for error. Which means, functionally, Nate is correct. And it is important, as somebody who likes to be... People assume that I'm trying to be devil's advocate. I'm not. You're just saying things that you feel, and I am telling you the facts. When you say something that you feel and the facts agree with you, I feel that I should give you credit. In this case, Nate was 100% on board. One game per week that is not as close is well within a margin for error, which means functionally all pro and all men, we're seeing about the same level of competition in the game. Blowouts are basically the same too. I tracked those through 6 weeks. 25 blowouts in all pro. That for blowouts I did 3-score games, 17 points or more, and 23 in all men. It's functionally no different in terms of score. So, my hat is off to Nate. What he said was entirely true. Functionally speaking, there is no difference in score between, at least in closeness of score, between all men and all pro. All men plays tighter, the scores are lower, but functionally it is not actually worse. Big Hurt said that interceptions were going down and that the league was figuring it out. That is a little less, I don't want to say a little less true. It is not untrue. It's just harder to figure out. Simply because week 6 starts bye weeks. Weeks 1 and 2, we had 100 interceptions. Week 3 and 4, 101 interceptions. Weeks 5 and 6, we had 88 interceptions. But again, bye week started in week 6. If you average out week 6 with the other 4 teams playing, what we end up with is actually closer to about 94 interceptions, which is still less, but like with Nate's close game comment, 6 interceptions is also well within most margins for error. So it's hard to say definitively we are figuring it out, but it at least sort of looks like we're trending in that direction a little bit. Obviously, I'm going to keep up with all of this throughout the season, because at the end of the season, I'm going to do a show where I put out all the statistics, because the board is going to have to make a decision, all Madden or all Pro, and it is important, I think, for the benefit of the league, that that decision be made with both vibes and facts. You feel like the game plays better, here are the numbers, how well do they balance out? Are more interceptions thrown and fewer touchdowns thrown worth what we're seeing in game in terms of how the game plays? For the best of the league, it is important that the stats be presented so that they can be considered as part of the end decision. Speaking of interceptions and touchdowns, as of right now, we are trending up in interceptions over last season, but not by as much as you would think. The problem, of course, is on pace is very difficult to track over the next 6 or so weeks because of bye weeks. So I'm not going to get a really good on pace until I think week 13, when everybody's had their bye weeks, week 13, 14, in that range. Once everybody's had their bye weeks, it'll be easier to track the on pace for interceptions and touchdowns. Based on what I can gather right now, we are looking at about 60, 70 more interceptions than last season. We are looking at about 110 fewer touchdowns. So we're looking at about 880, 885 interceptions and about 925 touchdowns, give or take. That's also, I'm just rounding to the nearest because they're decimals and blah, blah, blah. So We are not scoring as this is all passing touchdowns, by the way. We all know running is more difficult. Um, I think that will make some players happy. There are players in this league that think running the ball is boring and they want the league to be a more pass heavy league, um, because it benefits their style and the way they like to play. So they'll be pleased that running the ball is less viable as your number one offensive option. It's not completely unviable, but it is less viable. They will be less happy that passing interceptions are up and passing touchdowns are down, but I think they'll be pleased that Madden 25 All Madden plays a lot like Madden 24, even though Madden 24 was objectively the worst Madden we've ever had. But they had success in that Madden, so they loved the way it played. Um, I made a similar comment in episode 4, which is why I took it down, because I named names, and that wasn't fair. But there are certain people who really like All Men, and I think it's because it plays their style better and other styles worse, and suddenly their records might start improving. But generally speaking, it looks like we might end up with functionally as many touchdowns thrown as interceptions thrown. And I'm not sure what that says about All Madden. Um, but there's obviously still two more um, segments of the schedule. I'm doing it every about 6 weeks. I'm compiling it all. And 12 weeks or so left in the season. So things can still change. Obviously, there will be an adjustment period eventually. I don't know that we're in it because touchdowns thrown are actually falling off dramatically over the last 2 weeks. Um, like weeks 1 and 2, we threw like 120 touchdowns. Weeks 3 and 4 was about 109, and then this past week, the past 2 weeks, 94. So you see it trending down, but again, bye weeks kind of affect this week. We probably had over 50. It probably looks a little bit better if we don't have the bye weeks, but it's all something I'm going to keep an eye on. Close games, touchdowns, interceptions. We're going to keep an eye on it. We'll talk about it again during week 13. I'll have everybody will be done their bye week, so I'll be able to get a more solid set of numbers for bye weeks and on pace, and we'll go from there. At the end of the season, I'll throw all the numbers out there, tag the board members, and whatever decision they make is for the best of the league. We have to always trust that their decisions are for the best of the league. As long as they have all the information, I trust as much as anybody else. We're just going to have to see how it is. All of this finally brings me to the Atlanta Falcons portion of the show. I should be in the background, or, well, on the screen, I guess, showing the highlight pack I did for the Cleveland Browns game I played. It's about a 2.5 minute highlight pack, so I'm going to have to stretch as best I can to get that highlight pack in. The game was admittedly not exactly a barn burner game. It finished 10-7. Just really good defense, which is the only way I'm going to win in this league. is just shutting down your offense because my offense can't do anything. I am getting hit as I throw every single time. It happened against Cleveland. It just happened tonight against Tampa Bay. Every time I drop back, I got clobbered. Still ended up with like 180 yards, but like 12 of 20 and just smacked every time I tried to throw the ball. This game, I had 2 sacks on me. I sacked Cleveland 3 times. They turned the ball over once. I was without Bijan still. Just got him back for this week. Did not help. Michael Penix Jr., 188, touchdown. He was fine, but the problem is continually that I don't have time to pass the ball, so I can't really run my offense at all. So I'm constantly trying to adjust and change it and hopefully figure something out. Jerome Ford played fine, 36 yards on 7 carries, but the running back, whose name I've recently changed to Vita Little, was much better. I've enjoyed using him far much more. I'm a little worried about his 88 carry, but 8 carries, 35 yards. He just feels a little more shifty. I changed his name. I know we're not technically allowed. At least that was a rule at one point. Though I've seen we have like Rex Manning Jr. in the league. So Tavita Little is kind of a tradition for me. The first Madden league I was ever in was, God, I don't even remember which Madden it was. Odell Beckham's rookie year. I remember that for a fact because I took the New York Giants. I got brought in to a league, and that was the team that was available. My first draft, I drafted 2 players, Tavita Little, running back, and Quadorius Bell, tight end. And after that, I didn't win fewer than 10 games, and I have never forgotten about that player, or those players. Those 2 players have always been kind of on my mind in terms of like how other draft picks work out to them. So every Madden, at some point, I get a backup running back or somebody that is a draft pick. Somebody. Eventually, I need a number 2 running back. A lot of the times, I'll have like a Bijan, or Travis Etienne or whatever, and then I will bring somebody in and I will change their name to Vita Little, just as like paying homage. It's like a personal thing. Nobody really knows anything about it. None of you would have seen him play, but the guy was just so dynamic, and I loved using him so much, and it got me so excited to play Madden, to have this running back that was kind of shifty and kind of, he didn't have the best breakaway speed, but I could double juke and he would be gone, and I could big touchdowns and 1,500 yards a season basically, and it was just so much fun to play back then. That league was my home league for a very long time, so I really enjoyed having him, so I bring him back every now and then. I don't tend to draft tight ends very much, so Quadorius Bell's kind of lost to time, but I do try to pay homage to my favorite running back of all time, the, I don't know, Madden 13, Madden 15, New York Giants running back that doesn't exist. And anyways, that should probably take us through the highlight pack and then some. So we're just going to skip on to the Ravens game, which will be really quick because it didn't get played. We had a game time scheduled. We were going to play it 8 a.m. in the morning. I'm exhausted. I got off work a little bit early to get home to play it. I got online fine, but it was the morning of the update. We found out about the update the night before. I think Bill posted it. And sure enough, he couldn't get on. And we waited until about 8:30, and then at that point, it's like, if we haven't started by now, I'm not going to be able to stay up long enough to play it. The rest of the week, he worked later than I could stay home. I have to leave just after 9. I work 10 to 8, basically. I work a 10-hour shift. Um, I leave just after 9. He didn't get home until 8:30, usually about 8:30, which means we only had 40 minutes to get a game in. These games take an hour and 10 on a good day. And that's assuming he gets in and just drops all his stuff and immediately starts playing the game. So we just couldn't get it timed. It sucks. I was looking forward to playing the Ravens. I don't think Nibbles and I have ever played. Or we did once, like, way back in the day. So, unfortunately, we couldn't get the game in. Game went to sim. I lost, which is fine. I'm not trying to win this season, and I'm 3-4 now. I'm 2-4 as of that game. 3-4, spoilers. Just, it's one of those weird seasons where I'm probably going to end up like, 7-10, 8-9, miss the playoffs by like 3 games, but really screw my own draft class. I'm going to, go on a 6-game win streak to end the season or something, and just kind of pull a Nate and destroy my draft stock completely. Fortunately, there isn't a QB worth taking, so I don't even know what I'm doing for the draft anyways. So that was my last 2 weeks. There isn't a whole lot to tell you. This is already about an 18-minute video, so I think I'm going to cut it off here. Next edition will be in a couple weeks after. I'll probably record it like Wednesday or Thursday, because I got to do. It will involve this week's game against Tampa, and I think next week I play the Bengals, so I will record that after the Bengals game and get it up Wednesday, Thursday, Friday at the latest. It will probably include, like today's episode, will probably include the highlight pack I make for the Tampa game. I tend to only do wins because it's not as fun to rip through a highlight pack for a loss. So we'll probably put that in, extend for some time, give you something to look at, and we'll get to that. Other than that, I don't see much to talk about. We have kind of covered all Madden the last 3 episodes. But, is what it is. We will. I muted that. I'll probably post it back up later. I muted it. I privated it, the video. I'll probably post it later so I can get it for the points. But that's a down the road decision. Maybe I'll just post another extra highlight video or 2 to make up the points. I don't know. Anyways, that does it for this episode. Probably going to have to do a little bit of editing to trim down the rambling. We're about 20 minutes, and I want to make this last. So, until next episode, for the OMFL Atlanta Falcons review, I have been Mike Fleury, and as always, we'll try to do better next time.